Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're taking a look at this upcoming MMO called Architect Land of Exiles. And this game is saying something kind of crazy on their website. They're calling it zero stress gameplay. Like, what does that even mean? So on May 14, there's gonna be a playtest in Taiwan. But honestly, before anything else, this zero stress idea is what really caught my attention. So I started looking into it, and then I saw this feature where you can go offline up to 24 hours and still get the same rewards. And if that's actually true, that's a big deal. So yeah, maybe that's one part of what they mean by zero stress. But at the same time, I also saw this part at the beginning where they're saying they were #1 in downloads and top grossing. And I'm gonna be real with you guys, for me this one is kind of marketing thing, because if you played a lot of MMOs, you already know how this goes. Like every new MMO, especially on launch, normally it will be #1 because players are going to try new games. That's just how it works. What actually matters is what happens after like 2 or 3 months, because I remember when this game first came out, and as usual, normally there was a hype, but after a while the player base was not really that big. I even made content before calling it kind of like a forgotten MMO, because I don't really see a lot of Korean content creators covering it anymore. And at the same time, there were other MMOs like RF Online Next, Legend of Premier. So I think back then players were really invested somewhere else. So I think that's kind of the reality with MMO players right now. I don't know if you notice this too, but MMO players usually the same people. You know, like you jump into a new MMO and then suddenly you see familiar names again. Not even just content creators, just the same players. Because I think normally most MMO players only commit to one game at a time. But anyway, I really don't want to say anything negative about this game. I'm just saying what happened before. And to be fair, when I actually tried the game, there were things I really liked. Like first, the combat feels really smooth. It kind of reminds me of Odin Valhalla Rising or even Ion 2. You know, like it has that tab target feeling, but at the same time, it feels a bit action based. So it's actually a nice mixed gameplay. And then the second thing is the world. It's actually big, like really big. So if you're into open world games like Genshin Impact or Honor of Kings World, then you will probably enjoy this. You know, like there's a lot to explore, a lot of resources to gather. It actually feels like a real open world and not just empty space. And then the third thing is the gacha system, because usually in Korean MMOs, your character is always locked behind gacha, right? Like you don't really choose, instead you just roll. But here it's different. The gacha is more for mounts and cosmetics, which honestly is already a big improvement. But again, this is a new version coming on May 14, so we don't know what they might change. And again, scrolling this down and going back to that zero stress idea, they also mentioned this trading system where you can turn your in-game effort into real value. And I don't know yet what that fully means, but it kind of sounds like play to earn game. You know, like you can farm something in the game and sell it with real money. So we'll see how this game will turn out, especially on this trading thing. They also said there's gonna be one seamless world shared by all players, and if that really means one server, that would actually be really good, especially for a game with a world that is so big like this. And then there's PvP, where they're saying it's more about strategy and teamwork. Well guys, I think every MMO says that, so in short, for this part, we'll have to test it ourselves. And then lastly guys, they're promising that the dev team is actually listening to players. And honestly, that's one of the biggest things right now in mobile MMOs, because if you look at games like ROOC for example, they still have some pay to win elements, but it's more controlled now, and because they actually listen to the community, like limiting the power of money in the game. So hopefully this game will listen to players as well, just like ROOC. But anyway guys, I'm actually kind of excited to see what they actually change in this game and what this zero stress gameplay really means in practice. So let's see what happens on May 14. And yeah guys, again, thank you very much for supporting the channel, and as always, whatever you guys are playing, happy gaming. Alright.